China is not just a country, it is a continent-sized civilization. A force whose history, population, economy, culture, and global influence are so vast and complex that trying to summarize it feels like trying to pour an ocean into a cup, because China is not defined by a single dynasty, political era, or cultural stereotype, but by thousands of years of continuity, transformation, innovation, and reinvention. And when you think about China, you might imagine the Great Wall stretching across mountains like a stone dragon, cities glowing with neon skyscrapers, temples emerging from the mist, or markets echoing with the sound of bargaining and laughter. Yet these images only scratch the surface of a civilization that has shaped the world's philosophy, commerce, technology, and political landscape for millennia. And in a world where global power is shifting faster than ever, China stands at the center of economic debates, diplomatic tensions, cultural fascination, and geopolitical strategy, making it impossible to understand the modern world without understanding China's rise, China's values, China's struggles, and China's ambitions. And this script will explore everything from ancient dynasties to modern superpower status, from Confucian wisdom to digital innovation, from cultural traditions to economic dominance, showing how China became one of the most influential nations in human history, and why its story is essential to understanding our collective future. To understand China today, you must first recognize that it is not simply a large country on the map, but a civilization state, a concept that blends cultural continuity with political unity, meaning that while other nations rise and fall over centuries, China has persisted through thousands of years of dynasties, revolutions, reforms, invasions, and renaissances, creating an identity so deeply rooted that it continues to influence every aspect of modern life, from family traditions to political ideology. And China matters today not only because it has the world's largest population or the second largest economy, but because it is a nation undergoing one of the most dramatic transformations in human history, shifting from poverty to global power in a single generation, constructing megacities at unprecedented speed, leading in manufacturing, technology, and infrastructure, and reshaping how the world trades, communicates, and competes. And yet beneath the headlines about economic growth, global influence, and political debates lies a deep reservoir of culture, philosophy, art, cuisine, and spiritual tradition that has shaped billions of lives across East Asia and beyond, making China not only a geopolitical force, but a cultural beacon whose stories, values, and innovations continue to ripple across the world. And this introduction serves as a doorway into the layers of China: historical, economic, cultural, human, explaining how a civilization so ancient became a nation so modern, and what its rise means for the future of our interconnected world. Long before the Great Wall stretched across deserts and mountains, long before emperors ruled from palaces or scholars wrote poetry, China began along the ancient river valleys of the Yellow River and Yangtze River, where early human settlements formed some of the world's earliest organized societies, cultivating millet and rice, developing sophisticated agricultural systems, and building villages that would evolve into dynasties. And the origins of China are not simply archaeological facts. They are the foundation of a worldview that sees society as an extension of natural order, where harmony, stability, and cultural continuity matter as much as technology or conquest, shaping a civilization that valued learning, philosophy, and family as cornerstones of identity. And as early Chinese societies developed writing systems, bronze casting, political hierarchies, and complex spiritual beliefs, they established patterns that would define Chinese civilization for millennia. Respect for ancestors, the importance of community, the power of centralized rule, and the belief that knowledge is the highest virtue. And understanding these origins is essential because China's modern political strategies, cultural values, and economic ambitions do not come from recent history alone. They emerge from a civilization that has been building, expanding, collapsing, and rebuilding for 4,000 years, making China one of the most persistent forces in the story of human development. Chinese history is often described not as a straight line, but as a flowing river, moving from one dynasty to another in cycles of rise, prosperity, decline, and renewal, beginning with the Xie and Shang dynasties, expanding through the Zhou dynasty that introduced Confucianism and philosophical wisdom, to the mighty Qin dynasty that unified China and built the first version of the Great Wall, and then the Han dynasty that created the Silk Road and influenced East Asian culture for millennia. And these dynasties did not merely rule, they shaped Chinese identity, inventing paper, the compass, gunpowder, printing, and breakthroughs in science, art, architecture, and governance that spread across Asia and Europe, transforming global civilization long before the modern world existed. And the Tang and Song dynasties became golden ages of poetry, painting, and technological innovation, while the Yuan dynasty brought Mongol rule. The Ming dynasty fortified China's borders and built the modern Great Wall, and the Qing dynasty expanded the empire to its greatest territorial size before encountering the pressures of Western powers and internal rebellion. What makes China's dynastic history extraordinary is not just its length, but its continuity, because even when a dynasty collapsed, the core idea of China, its culture, language, and philosophical foundations survived, creating a civilization that could endure war, famine, invasion, and political upheaval while still preserving its worldview and identity. To understand China's culture, you must understand the philosophies that shaped it, and the most influential of these are Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, three pillars that together form the spiritual, ethical, and intellectual framework of Chinese civilization, guiding how people think, behave, and relate to one another. And Confucianism, with its emphasis on hierarchy, social harmony, respect for elders, and moral duty, created a society where stability and order were valued above individualism, while Taoism encouraged balance with nature, inner peace, and the belief that life flows best when we do not force our will upon the world, and Buddhism, arriving from India through centuries of cultural exchange, transformed Chinese art, literature, and spirituality, blending with local traditions to create a distinctly Chinese understanding of meditation, compassion, and enlightenment. And these three philosophies shaped family structure, education, governance, and cultural rituals for over 2,000 years, influencing everything from poetry to city planning, from marriage, customs, to political ideology, from healing techniques to holiday traditions. And together, they form the cultural DNA of China, explaining why harmony, continuity, and respect remain central values, even as the country experiences rapid modernization in the 21st century, showing that China's cultural foundation is not simply ancient, it is alive, evolving, and deeply rooted in every aspect of daily life. China's economic story reaches back thousands of years, beginning in small marketplaces where farmers traded grain, silk producers sold their precious threads, and craftsmen shaped bronze, jade, and pottery with skill unmatched anywhere else in the ancient world. And what makes the early Chinese economy extraordinary is that it was not merely about survival, it was structured, innovative, and deeply connected to philosophy, meaning that commerce was seen not just as wealth building, but as a reflection of order, harmony, and communal balance. And as dynasties rose, China developed canals, irrigation systems, and agricultural reforms that allowed it to support vast populations, making it one of the world's first large-scale economic powers. And with the opening of the Silk Road during the Han Dynasty, China became the heart of global trade, exporting silk, spices, ceramics, technologies, and ideas, while importing precious metals, horses, cultural influences, and knowledge from Persia, India, Rome, and later the Islamic world, turning China into a crossroads of civilizations long before globalization became a modern buzzword. And through centuries of dynastic rule, taxation systems, trade guilds, and manufacturing techniques evolved so efficiently that by the medieval period, China had one of the most advanced economies on Earth, with paper money circulation, large-scale iron production, world-leading shipbuilding, and sophisticated banking practices, creating a legacy of economic strength that continues to echo in China's 21st century industrial power. Despite its ancient power, China's stability was shattered in the 19th and early 20th centuries during a period often called the Century of Humiliation, when foreign invasion, internal rebellion, and political fragmentation converged to weaken the Qing dynasty and plunge the nation into crisis. And this era began with the Opium Wars, when Western empires forced their way into Chinese markets, demanding trade privileges and imposing unequal treaties that dismantled China's sovereignty, opening ports to foreign control and undermining the authority of the Qing government. And during this time, China faced devastating uprisings such as the Taiping Rebellion and the Boxer Rebellion, both fueled by anger, desperation, and cultural turmoil, resulting in millions of deaths and further weakening the empire. And as global powers carved out spheres of influence, China struggled with famine, corruption, and military defeat, leading to the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1912 and the creation of the Republic of China, which itself was plagued by warlordism, civil war, and Japanese invasion. And This century-long suffering profoundly shaped China's modern identity, creating a collective memory of vulnerability, loss, and foreign exploitation that continues to influence its political thinking, economic strategy, and national pride today. And to understand modern China's determination to rise, assert itself, and avoid subjugation, one must recognize how deeply this historical trauma is woven into the country's psyche, driving its desire for strength, unity, stability, and global respect. The transformation from imperial China to modern China was neither simple nor peaceful. It was forged through revolution, ideology, and the ambition to rebuild a weakened nation, beginning with the rise of the Communist Party and the leadership of figures like Mao Zedong, who sought to unify China under a new political vision after decades of civil war and foreign invasion. And when the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949, it faced extraordinary challenges: widespread poverty, illiteracy, damaged infrastructure, and political fragmentation, all demanding radical transformation. The early communist era brought sweeping land reforms, industrial campaigns, and social restructuring, but also turmoil through events like the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution, which aimed to reshape society but resulted in immense hardship, loss of life, and cultural destruction. And yet, after Mao's death in 1976, China entered a new phase of modernization under Deng Xiaoping, who implemented economic reforms that opened China to foreign investment, market competition, and global trade, setting the stage for the country's rapid economic rise. And this period of rebirth, shifting from strict collectivism to a hybrid socialist market model, transformed China from an isolated nation into a global powerhouse, with new cities, factories, industries, and technologies emerging at unprecedented speed. And this evolution continues today as China balances tradition with modernization, stability with innovation, and national identity with global integration. Chinese culture is one of the richest and oldest cultural tapestries on Earth, shaped by thousands of years of philosophy, poetry, festivals, art forms, music, family traditions, and regional diversity that stretch across mountains, deserts, megacities, and rural landscapes, creating a cultural identity that is both unified and incredibly diverse. And central to this culture is the idea of family, where generations live together, ancestors are honored, elders are respected, and family festivals like Lunar New Year become symbols of unity, renewal, and prosperity. And Chinese festivals themselves are masterpieces of cultural expression. Mid-Autumn Festival with its mooncakes and lanterns, Dragon Boat Festival with racing boats and sticky rice dumplings, Qingming Festival honoring ancestors at gravesides, and countless regional celebrations featuring dance, food, rituals, and folklore passed down for centuries. China's artistic heritage includes calligraphy written like flowing water, ink painting that captures the spirit of nature, porcelain that once fascinated the world, opera styles such as Peking opera with colorful masks and symbolic movements, and martial arts like Kung Fu that combine philosophy, discipline, and physical mastery. And in modern times, Chinese culture continues evolving through cinema, literature, pop music, fashion, and digital art, blending ancient traditions with futuristic creativity. And to understand China is to appreciate how deeply its culture, values, continuity, storytelling, symbolism, and balance binding together millions of people across vast landscapes and generations. The Chinese language is not just a means of communication, it is a cultural and historical vessel, carrying the values, philosophies, and worldview of a civilization thousands of years old, with Mandarin, Putonghua, serving as the official language, while hundreds of dialects and regional tongues such as Cantonese, Shanghainese, Hokkien, Hakka, and Sichuanese reflect the diversity of local identities across China's vast landscape. And what makes Chinese linguistic tradition remarkable is its writing system, built on characters rather than letters, where each character is a symbol that conveys meaning, history, and artistic expression, forming a script that has been in continuous use for over 3,000 years, making it one of the oldest writing systems still alive today. And because Chinese characters are logographic, they connect speakers across dialects. Two regions may speak mutually unintelligible languages, but still share the same writing system, creating a cultural unity that transcends sound. And language plays a central role in Chinese identity, from Confucian classics studied for centuries to modern literature, exploring both tradition and rapid change. From the poetic tones of classical poetry to the digital slang of contemporary youth culture on social media platforms like WeChat and Weibo. And Mandarin's rise as a global language reflects China's growing cultural and economic influence, as millions around the world study it for business, diplomacy, travel, and cultural appreciation. And within China, the preservation of dialects and minority languages reveals the nation's layered identity, where unity and diversity intertwine through the power of language. Modern China is a nation experiencing a transformation so rapid, so sweeping, and so vast in scale that historians argue no other country in human history has undergone such profound change in such a short period, because within just a few decades, China leaped from rural poverty and limited infrastructure to become a global industrial powerhouse, a technological innovator, and a central player in international politics. And as cities rose at unprecedented speed, Beijing expanding into a high-tech capital, Shanghai turning into a global financial hub, Shenzhen evolving from a fishing village into a Silicon Valley-style megacity, and Guangzhou becoming a manufacturing giant, China built highways, airports, bullet trains, skyscrapers, and entire economic zones that transformed its landscape beyond recognition. And this modern rise is powered not only by manufacturing, but by tech companies like Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, BYD, Xiaomi, and countless startups shaping the future of AI, digital payments, robotics, and electric vehicles, making China not just a factory of the world, but a laboratory of innovation. And as millions moved from rural areas into cities, living standards rose, poverty rates dropped dramatically, and a new middle class emerged, fueling domestic consumption, tourism, and cultural development. And yet China's modernization is not simply economic. It is also social, cultural, and political, marked by debates about tradition versus modernity, rural versus urban identity, and individual aspirations versus collective progress, creating a nation where ancient values and futuristic ambitions coexist in a complex and ever-evolving balance. China's modern economy is one of the most influential economic forces in the world, shaped by manufacturing, technology, exports, domestic consumption, infrastructure investment, and strategic planning that positions the country as both a global factory and a global marketplace. And what makes China's economy unique is not just its size, it is the deliberate balance between state guidance and market competition, where government planning sets national priorities while private companies innovate, experiment, and compete on a global scale, creating a hybrid economic model unlike that of Western capitalist nations or fully centralized economies. And China leads the world in areas like high-speed rail, solar power production, electric vehicles, rare earth minerals, e-commerce technology, drone manufacturing, shipping infrastructure, and mega-project construction, giving it economic influence that reaches every continent. And initiatives like the Belt and Road, a vast network of ports, railways, highways, and energy projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe extend China's economic reach, shaping trade routes and global development patterns for decades to come. And at home, China's digital economy thrives, with platforms like WeChat dominating communication, payment systems enabling cashless lifestyles, and live stream e-commerce transforming how people shop, creating entire ecosystems of online consumer culture. And while China faces economic challenges such as demographic shifts, debt issues, and global competition, its resilience, scale, and strategic vision position it as one of the primary engines of global economic growth in the 21st century. Rural China, often overshadowed by glittering megacities and high-tech innovation, remains the cultural and emotional backbone of the country, preserving traditions, values, dialects, and lifestyles. Mountain villages, river valleys, and agricultural communities, where life still follows the rhythms of farming seasons and ancestral rituals. And these rural regions retain the essence of traditional Chinese culture, from village festivals filled with drums, lanterns, and folk dances, to local foods made with ingredients grown in the same fields that families have tended for centuries, to community gatherings where elders share stories, teach customs, and pass down wisdom that continues to ground younger generations. And although rural China has undergone massive change thanks to new infrastructure, poverty reduction initiatives, rural revitalization programs, and technology linking villages to global markets, these areas remain deeply connected to history, with temples, ancestral halls, clan traditions, and spiritual practices forming the social glue that binds communities together. And rural life also reveals China's diversity, because every province, region, and minority group has its own cultural identity, from the rice terraces of Guangxi to the Tibetan Plateau, from the Hakka Tulu earth buildings in Fujian to the Uyghur bazaars in Xinjiang, showcasing a country far more diverse than many outsiders realize. And as China modernizes, rural areas face challenges such as youth migration to cities, aging populations, and cultural preservation, yet they continue to play a crucial role in defining the values and emotional landscape of the nation. Urban China represents the futuristic side of the country, where megacities rise like steel giants powered by economic ambition, technological innovation, and the energy of millions of people moving through neon-lit streets, high-speed trains, sprawling business districts, and residential towers that seem to touch the sky. Cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, Chengdu, Hangzhou, Wuhan, Chongqing, and Guangzhou symbolize China's transformation into a global urban civilization, with each city developing its own identity. Shanghai as an international financial capital, Beijing as a political and cultural center, Shenzhen as a cradle of tech innovation, and Chengdu as a cultural and culinary hub with its laid-back lifestyle and rich history. And what makes China's urban development remarkable is the speed and scale. Entire districts are built in years rather than decades. Metro systems expand faster than those of any other nation, and infrastructure like airports, bridges, and high-speed rail networks reshape the nation's mobility. And China's innovation thrives in cities where entrepreneurs, engineers, designers, and creatives collaborate in co-working spaces, tech parks, and digital hubs, producing breakthroughs in AI, renewable energy, electric vehicles, fintech, biotech, and robotics that position China at the forefront of global technological competition. And urban culture thrives through art galleries, universities, fashion, food scenes, music festivals, and new media industries, creating a modern Chinese identity that blends global influences with local traditions. And yet, China's urban boom also brings challenges: population density, air quality, housing prices, and social pressures, highlighting the complexities of balancing rapid growth with human-centered development. Chinese cuisine is not merely a style of cooking, it is an entire culinary universe shaped by geography, philosophy, history, climate, and cultural diversity, making it one of the most influential and beloved food traditions in the world, with flavors ranging from spicy Sichuan peppercorns that create the famous tingling numbness to delicate Cantonese dim sum steamed with precision, to rich northern wheat-based noodles, to fragrant Yunnan herbs, to bold Xinjiang kebabs infused with Central Asian influences. And the philosophy behind Chinese cuisine is rooted in balance between yin and yang, heat and cold, sweet and savory, texture and aroma, reflecting the larger worldview that harmony should exist in all things. And regional cuisines such as Sichuan, Cantonese, Shandong, Jiangsu, Hunan, Anhui, Fujian, and Zhejiang each offered distinctive ingredients, cooking techniques, and cultural stories, turning China into a culinary map of endless discoveries. And food plays a central role in Chinese social life, from family banquets celebrating Lunar New Year, weddings, and festivals, to street food stalls serving dumplings, noodles, steamed buns, skewers, and rice dishes that capture the heartbeat of everyday life. And Chinese cuisine continues evolving in modern times through creative fusion, fine dining, culinary experimentation, and international migration that has brought Chinese flavors to every continent, making dishes like fried rice, hot pot, dumplings, and stir-fry not just national symbols, but global favorites. And understanding Chinese food is understanding Chinese culture itself, because every dish, from the humblest bowl of porridge to the most elaborate banquet, tells a story about family, region, history, and the philosophy of balance that runs through the core of Chinese identity.